Today, we dive into a conversation at the crossroad of ambition, humanity, and self preservation. Terence Davy is an executive coach who has lived the pressure of high growth leadership from the inside. His work now centers on helping mission driven leaders deliver exceptional results without burning out or compromising their values. With a blend of operational expertise and research backed psychology frameworks, he brings a fresh, grounded perspective to what modern leadership truly requires. This episode invites us to rethink performance not as a race towards exhaustion, but as a practice rooted in integration, clarity, and evolution. Welcome to the show, Terence. It's such an honor to have you.
And thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Terence, you help leaders achieve results without destroying themselves.
Mhm.
What do you see as the biggest misconceptions leaders carry about high performance?
There's a couple of different things. I would say the biggest is that the way to develop is to just push harder down the same path, work more hours, work longer hours. And it's actually pretty rare that I meet a leader who integrates time to actually sit back and reflect on what's working and what's not working and be really intentional about their skill development. Which is really the key to getting better. It's to practice the individual skills in live environments, and review your performance of those skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. And when you were in your own high growth roles, did you ever catch yourself falling into that misconception as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just writing about this yesterday because it was one of the most impactful experiences in my career thus far. Um, this happened when I believe the level that I was at was senior director. I was asked to deliver some pretty, um, you could almost say unrealistic results at the start of the pandemic, with really high pressure. And I already at that time had been working insane hours, and pushing really hard to grow and lead a increasingly complex and ambiguous environment. And when I got handed that target, I just doubled down on it. Working 6 to 7 days a week, every single week, 10 to 12 hours every day, for about a year and a half, and just ignoring all of my different patterns and habits that have actually gotten me to the space that I was in. Um, and eventually continuing down that path, I got sick. It just felt like a small sickness at first. And instead of resting, I worked 3 12-hour days in a row. And that ultimately led to me being hospitalized, for about 5 days. With after running a ton of different tests, the only thing that the doctors could say is that I had some stress related illness. And I had a lot of time to reflect on what did I do to get there and how can I continue to lead at a high level without breaking myself? Because if you break yourself, you can no longer lead at a high level. Like, if you allow your body to arrive at that state, what you're more likely to do is actually leave the field of leadership, which obviously decreases your impact. Uh, and so it was at that moment that, I decided that I needed to do things differently. And that's where my idea and practice of integrated leadership came up.
Yeah, and that honesty helps listeners recognize that even seasoned leaders can be pulled into outdated patterns, making your guidance feel grounded and relatable.
Mhm. Yeah, it can absolutely happen to anyone. And one of the biggest things that I learned after that, um, because it was like really highly publicized, at least within my organization, that I was sick and hospitalized, because I addressed the entire organization and at least the entire revenue department regularly, and so people knew that I was missing. And then for a couple of weeks after that sickness, I had damaged my esophagus in the hospital, so I couldn't speak even though I was working still, I couldn't talk to people. And that invited a lot of folks to talk to me about their own experience in leadership. And it was far more often than not that I talked to leaders who had had some similar type of health scare. Um, I talked to C-level executives who had things from like liver failure to high blood pressure, and all related to their work environment and work stress. And the thing that was sad is that most of the folks that I talked to hadn't really made any changes after that event. And so their health just continued to decline over time. So yeah, it can happen to anyone and it happens pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And also, your approach blends operational experience with frameworks like immunity to change. How do you explain this idea of hidden commitments to leaders who are encountering it for the first time?
Yeah, the first way to explain it is you have to be communicating to someone about an aspect of themselves or a behavior that they've tried to change multiple times unsuccessfully. That could be things like working out consistently, or from a leadership perspective, delegating more effectively instead of stepping in and always taking on the work yourself. Typically, if someone is a growth oriented individual, they've done things in the past to try to overcome what they see as their limitations, and it's failed. And so that invites them into a conversation about something like the immunity to change process, where the crux of the issue is looking at a technical versus an adaptive challenge. I'll define those really quickly. A technical challenge is one in which there exists a set of steps that if you follow the steps, you'll get the result you're looking for. Um, so you could think of something like putting together a marketing campaign or sending out outbound emails, or even something as challenging and complex as performing a surgery. There are steps that you can follow, and if you follow those steps correctly, you get to the desired outcome. That's a technical challenge. An adaptive challenge is something different. It's something that requires the acquisition of new knowledge and the change in your perspective to succeed in. Um, and usually some like deep change in habits. And that's things like losing weight, or becoming a better delegator at work, where people try to apply the steps that they see, but they don't get the results that they're looking for. So that's kind of the crux of the issue, is that people try to apply technical solutions to adaptive challenges. um, Once you allow them to see that, the conversation then becomes, what are the core stories, commitments, and assumptions about the world that are keeping you in these limiting behavioral patterns? And how can we work to make change at that level? So it's going a layer deeper. Instead of just trying to change the outward behavior that people see, we seek to change the assumptions and beliefs that are the source of those behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. And can you recall a moment when someone uncovered a hidden commitment that completely shifted how they operated?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll actually take me a bit of time to pick the right one. Uh, yeah, the I was working with a client whose uh their goal was to be more consistent in building their own personal brand and promoting their brand on social media. And so they had a whole list of tasks that they could do to hit that goal. They tried it a bunch of times, and each time they might start and do well for a week or 2 weeks, and then eventually they end up in the same space where they're not promoting themselves. Uh, and the hidden commitment that we discovered through a couple of sessions of working together is that uh, they felt that people who promoted themselves online, or people who worked really hard to sell themselves, didn't actually have value. They had this hidden belief that if you are actually providing value, you don't need to sell, and you don't need to promote yourself, that people will find you. And so anytime they went to promote themselves, that challenge their own idea and understanding of their value, which subconsciously over time made them stop promoting themselves. Um, so that was the hidden commitment that was holding them back. And then the work that we did after that was um, just seeking to break that assumption. Like, there are so many, like, obviously valuable tools and solutions that have commercials on in the Super Bowl, that you find in ads on Instagram. And so we worked to change that belief to even if you have something that's super valuable, if no one knows about it and you're not promoting it, you're not actually making a change in the world, and people are unlikely to find you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those breakthroughs reveal that sustainable change isn't about forcing new habits, but understanding the deeper fears that drive the old ones.
Exactly. You understand the deeper beliefs that drives the old habits, and then you do have to over time insert new behaviors. Um, but you insert those behaviors with an understanding of where they're coming from and deep understanding of why you need to do them. Uh, and you change your expectations over how long or how hard or how many setbacks you might have in pursuing a behavior change because you understand it's a lot harder than just doing something different. You have to think different.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. And many mission driven leaders struggle between delivering results and protecting their values. Where do you see the tension showing up most in real world leadership today?
I see it showing up most in purpose driven leaders arriving at a space where they actually have to sell their services, especially if they're selling into communities that are underserved or under resourced. There's this tension that comes up of wanting to give their product and value away for free or nearly free, but also knowing that if they do that, they can't actually sustain their business and continue to offer this product. And so that's the biggest tension that I see is in going to market with something that is mission driven, and understanding that you have the goals of driving an impact on the world, but you also have to have goals of building your business and sustaining your business. And so helping mission driven leaders understand that those two realities aren't at odds and actually you can go through intentional work to align those outcomes is some of the biggest challenge and most common challenges that I see coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And when values and immediate targets collide, how do you guide someone through that decision without losing integrity or momentum?
It varies person to person, but um, the ultimate or the thing that comes up in most cases, or the thing that drives the results in most cases, is helping them see their organization and their product not as separate from the community that they're looking to serve, but an active participant in the community that they're looking to serve, and think about how can you align your purpose and your vision with the purpose and vision of the people that you're serving. So it's becoming more integrated into the system as opposed to trying to understand or strategize about the system from the outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is where your experience truly shines. Like listeners can learn how to navigate pressure with both confidence and consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes constant intentional effort. I truly believe that this process of aligning values and behaviors and commitment, it pays a ton of dividends in terms of being fulfilled and having balance in your life and making a real impact. But in exchange, it's something that you have to work on and pay attention to constantly. there won't be a time where you arrive where everything is just on autopilot and you don't have anything to assess or change or grow in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have led teams through rapid growth and accusations. What did those chapters teach you about your emotional realities of leadership that strategy alone couldn't?
The biggest learning that I had, well, I'll take them separately. There's high growth teams and then there's integrating teams. I'll start with integrating teams because that's quite a bit different. Uh, the biggest lesson that I learned from there is how important intentional cultural development is. So I led teams for about 6 years before ever being asked to integrate an acquired team. And in those 6 years, we built a very and intentional and positive culture. Like some aspects were like being intensely customer focused, and everyone in the organization, from the most entry level individual contributor to the highest level leader, acted as leaders in the organization, meaning they were accountable to the outcomes that we were trying to drive. Uh, and that just became the norm. That's how we hired people. Like we ensured that they were additive and fit into the culture. um, and then you go to integrate a team from a different company and you realize, like, even if you have a similar mission or vision, the way that it shows up in the culture is likely different. And you can't just mix folks together and expect that you're going to get the cultural outcomes that you want. You actually have to be really intentional, and it takes a lot of energy. And I would venture to say that that's where most acquisitions and integrations fail, because most of them do fail. I think something like 9 in 10 integrations don't achieve the expected results. And it's because there's cultural clash, which directly impacts the outputs that you're looking for, like revenue and efficiency. So that's what I learned from integrating teams. In terms of dealing with high growth, uh, I learned that the single most important characteristic of the leaders and individuals that you have in a high growth environment is the ability to adapt to change. Um, because the faster your organization is growing, the faster the iteration cycles that you make need to be. And if you have a bunch of folks that are super attached to how things were yesterday, instead of thinking about how can we build for the future that's emerging today, what you run into is a lot of people being very frustrated and burned out and low quality work. And so adaptability is the most important thing to teach in those environments.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's great. And did those experience influence the way you now coach leaders to build emotionally sustainable teams?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I I'm trying to think if there's been any situation that's outside of this, and I don't think so. With every leader, it's getting really clear on what are the cultural norms and values that currently exist in your team, and how are they different from the ones that you intended to build or that you think will drive the best results for all involved parties. And then, especially in today's environment where there is like massive increases in technological capabilities, huge decreases in operating budgets, and increased demands on what folks are able to deliver, and increased demands on innovation. Leaders have to be able to adapt, and they need to be able to adapt in an environment where, though many people claim they have the answers, um, no one really does. No one can really accurately predict how AI is going to continue to develop, or the impact that it'll have on the world and even the next month. And so knowing that, how do you lead in a way that creates clarity and direction for your team, constantly creates and recreates clarity and direction for your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that connection shows how lived experience can evolve into wisdom, giving leaders permission to prioritize both results and well being.
Mhm.
And integrated leadership is a powerful concept. In your view, what does a fully integrated leader look like in practice, not in theory?
Yeah, it's a pretty expansive topic on what it looks like in practice, but there's a few things that you can think about. Number one, I've said this word a couple of times, and that's balance. Um, Integrated leadership is a holistic approach where you align your own individual values and identities uh, to all of your behaviors in every aspect of your life. And so, like, constantly seeking balance. Like, are you working too much? Are you working hard enough? Are you getting the results that you're looking for? Like, are you growing in the direction that you want to? Are you spending time with family? Just this constant idea of aligning your internal and external systems. And then the way that that shows up in leadership is uh, being it kind of makes sense with the name, but it's being in integrity, like, uh, a state where the people around you that work around you know that, they can trust your word and know that if you say something, you're not gonna go and do another thing, like, you're steady and stable, and they understand what to expect from you. And integrated leaders, because they show up in this way, they also build really psychologically safe environments around them. And so you can see like their teams are willing to disagree. Their teams are willing to experiment and try new things in service of a larger purpose, without fear of retribution. So I think those are some of the biggest keys that you see from an integrated leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is there one daily or weekly practice you believe helps leaders stay anchored in integration rather than slipping into fragmentation?
Yeah, I there are really three that come up, but I'll choose one. Uh, yeah, and it's having a practice of reflection, which is also stated as inquiry, self inquiry, um, asking yourself the question, is what I'm doing aligned to my goal? Um, how am I contributing to what is present in my life right now? And is it the way that I want to contribute? And just having that self reflective time where you're reviewing your own performance against your own values and standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your practical insight here can give listeners an actionable entry point into leadership that feels both human and effective.
Mm.
So, thank you, Terence, for bringing such clarity and depth to the conversation. Your approach reminds us that true leadership isn't about carrying more pressure, it's about carrying it more consciously. And for everyone listening, let this conversation urge you to examine where your leadership aligns and where it strains. Choose integration, choose sustainability, and choose a way of leading that strengthens both your results and your well being.